No, I did
Timothy.
Timothy.
I thought we did change. Do it again.
Good evening, Brightest Hope family. We're so thankful for you guys tuning in. I know I didn't send out the blast. There's been a lot of craziness going on today. But we are live. We are here. We are ready to go. We are a 501c3, so any donations coming in go out to the people. We don't have any overhead, and it's designed like that to be the hands and feet that God calls us to be. So any money coming in is going on out. We also want you guys to like these videos, to share these videos, all of that. That all helps the algorithm. That all helps all the different things. So we just appreciate you guys and everything that you do. So as you're sharing, liking the videos, share them with other friends, it all just helps us. Now, can you hit that light? It's a little dark behind me.
Oh, put that light on. Oh, it's on. Can you override the timer?
How do I do that?
There.
Hey, yay, we got light.
Camera action.
Woohoo! All right. Let's see. All right. There's one person on so far. We'll see if some others. Let's see. All right, so the question is, what should we study tonight? And that's a really good question. I have a couple of options. I'm going to pull this up really quick. And I'm going to ask you guys, what topic... opened up the wrong one. You know what? That's a good one. I like this one. Here we go. We are going to do... Let me finish pulling this up. I'm sorry. It's been a crazy day.
Tell them we have Starlink, hopefully better.
Yeah. So why it's been a little bit crazy is that we installed or temporarily installed the Starlink. So we were kind of a day ahead, and we're testing it live on the new Starlink over at my mom's. And so far we have not lost the stream. We would have lost it already on Comcast for whatever reason, but we're doing pretty good tonight. All right. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to do Ecclesiastes. That was a question that was asked. So let's dive into Ecclesiastes. So Ecclesiastes chapter 1. See, I don't have my Bible with me. So let's pull it up online. Can I see that Bible for a second? Perfect. All right. Here we go. So, thought I lost it there. So, pull this up. And Ecclesiastes is after Proverbs. Right after Proverbs. Here we go. Now it's even bookmarked. Look at that.
I love it, yeah.
Oh, okay. It doesn't have it. Okay. That one doesn't have the backstory history.
Oh, wait a minute. Okay.
All right. So let's just dive in. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. The words of the teacher, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. So this is coming from the words of David. This is coming out of David's mouth and it's being inscribed. Meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What do people gain from all their labors, as which they toil under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun sets and hurries back to where it rises. The wind blows to the south and turns to the north. Round and round it goes, ever returning on its course. All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place where the streams come from, there they return again. All things are wearisome, more than one can say. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear its fill of hearing. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one can say, "Look, this is something new"? It was here already long ago. It was here before our time. No one remembers the former generations, and even those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow them. I, the teacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem. I applied my mind to study and to explore by wisdom all that is done under the heavens. What a heavy burden God has laid on mankind. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. What is crooked cannot be straightened. What is lacking cannot be counted. I said to myself, "Look, I have increased in wisdom more than anyone that has ruled over Jerusalem before me. I have experienced much wisdom and knowledge." Then I applied myself to the understanding of wisdom, and also of madness and folly. But what I learned, that this, too, is a chasing after the wind. For with much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief. So Ecclesiastes 1 dives right on into really deep, I'm even going to say theology, right?
Who authored this book?
David. Well, David did this one. David. This one is right in the beginning. The words of the teacher, son of David, king of Jerusalem.
Son of David, no? Solomon?
The words of the teacher, son of David. Oh, Solomon.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I think you're right. I think it's Solomon.
The way he writes is different than David.
King Solomon. You were right.
Oh, okay.
Yep, I messed it up.
It's different than David's writings.
King Solomon, son of David, is the one who wrote this. See? I messed up. We're all human. All right, here we go. So, Solomon. Solomon asked God for wisdom. He asked, when he became king over Israel and to build the temple, God said, "Ask for anything and I'll give it to you." And Solomon asked for wisdom. When he asked for wisdom, God was impressed by that because he wasn't asking for fame, fortune, riches, all this other stuff. He asked for wisdom so that he would be a good leader to his people. And because he was humbled in front of God and asked very humbly so that he could serve others, God gave him riches and wisdom and everything that all went together with what he was asking for. But most importantly, he gave him wisdom. The riches were greater than anybody else has ever had. And he had fame and everything. Now, he's saying everything in this world is meaningless. So here's some really interesting parts. And when you really dive into the word, Job loses everything. and still praises God. He has pretty much lost everything, but will still praise God. Solomon is the little opposite, has everything, but realizes the most important thing is to praise God. And so here, right off the bat in Ecclesiastes 1, Solomon is saying everything is meaningless to a point, right? Not everything we do is just meaningless, okay? But what he's trying to say is the more wisdom you gain, the more grief you'll get, because you can see God, you can see what God is like, and you want to earn for that. And the world is turned its back on God. The world is completely opposite. And so toiling for the world means that, right, the world will be destroyed. We know this in Revelation. Everything on this world will be destroyed. So it's like, why build things when it's going to be destroyed? Well, we still build things anyway for the right reasons. It's not that everything is meaningless, but the whole heart of it is what gives it meaning. If it's just for fame, riches, and fortune, it will be meaningless because it will always be empty. But when you search God and when you put God first and everything is that God is centric of it all, then it's no longer meaningless. It's thriving within his kingdom. It's building his kingdom, not just the temporary that's here, right? This is that shift of the temporary versus the eternal. And so he's looking at the temporary. Now, when he says, oh, look at this isn't new. It's the land formations. It's all these different things. Right? There's not a lot of new things. Very rarely is there a new thing. Most of the time it's improvements on stuff, but it's not like new. I mean, we've had a garden hose for a very long time, but then we have the expandable garden hose. Okay, it's not fully new. It's just an improvement upon something. You have wrenches. Okay, we have wrenches. Oh, this new wrench. Oh, what makes it new, right? It still will turn a bolt. There's things like that. So, what he's saying is that the stuff of the earth, that becomes meaningless. The stuff built for the kingdom is never meaningless. And there's a differentiation between those two. But so many times we stick our foot in the worldly, that's where we run into problems. Right? Because we're stepping our foot into the meaningless. And the more we dive into it, the more it just sucks us in. And I'll say this, doom scrolling. Meaningless. Name the 5th video back that you watched. Can't remember it. You're scrolling, watch, oh, that's cool. Scroll, oh, okay. Scroll, oh, okay. What was that 5th one? Oh, I don't remember, right? Because it's quick dopamine hit, it's quick this, but it's not meaningful impact. The ones that really have a meaning, you're going to share with a friend. Sometimes you share so many, you don't even remember which one you shared. That's what we're talking about. Now, when we gain much wisdom, we can see the world for what it is. And that's where the sorrow comes in. Jesus said it best, you can gain the whole world and still lose your soul. When you gain wisdom, you can see that. And it's mournful that people can have influence. They can have all these things, still be losing their soul. Big careful flag of the prosperity gospel that many preach. Yeah, it's not biblical. It's not biblical. See, when we go through the Bible and people pray, God will give them the provision that they need. He'll give fish and loaves of bread and turn that into feeding 5,000 people. He'll take somebody meek and hiding in a wine press to taking 300 soldiers and defeating an entire army. He's not going to turn around and just dump a whole bunch of money at a problem. He's going to use the skills and talents in what you have and multiply it. I know I kind of went off on different tangents there, but that's a lot of what Solomon is getting across. Ecclesiastes chapter 2. Let's see. Isn't it important to be aware of what's happening in the world? So yes and no. What? I'm gonna sneeze. There we go. Hey, thank you. So it depends upon, and I'm going to say this very carefully, the source of how we're getting the information. Because the words that are pushed out, or the words that are used, typically will have an underlying agenda to it. You can see 5 different headlines from 5 different sources, and they all say something different. And they are all pointing to an agenda or a side that they want you to be focused on or to persuade you, right? They'll take something of an event and turn it into something that they've been saying, well, see, this is why I said we need this or we need to do that, and so on and so forth. So, you can find any which way of spinning something. This is why we need to seek truth in it all. Now, are we supposed to be aware of what's happening in the world? Sort of. We don't need to be the world's police. We don't, but we also need to make sure we protect ourselves, right? We don't really need to dive into things that won't really affect us. They could, but will they affect you in the immediate? Not always, right? So we have to gauge that. But the biggest thing is to not be so tied to the world, because a lot of news and a lot of things will they harvest, or they fearmonger, right? I mean, they promote fear. And the more fear that they can get people is, the more reaction they can get out of people. There's a huge psychological study about it. Back in the day, the news only read what happened. Then they weaponized it. Once they weaponized it, it is not turned back, because it became a profit machine. And that's what we have to be careful of.
And fear can give a devil his foothold.
Right. And fear can give a devil a foothold into everything, because he wants you to not rely on God. He wants you to focus on the problem and not the source of everything, right? The solution. And so the devil will tie you up in the fear and tie you up in all of those things, so that you don't keep your eye focused on God. And so a lot of it really does become, is it meaningful? Or is what we're watching meaningful? If what we're listening to meaningful, right? What about what's going on in attacks on Christianity from Islamic extremes? Yes. Yep. We should know that. We need to know that. We need to be praying about those.
That's biblical.
That is completely biblical, and that's the spiritual war that we need to focus on. The political war is also a spiritual war, but they don't want to say that, right? So yes, we need to keep our pulse on the spiritual war and the spiritual things. So yes, on the Christianity, the attacks, especially in Nigeria and all of those things, absolutely. The problem is that the news doesn't really report on that stuff. It's not the breaking headline news of 30 Christians were killed. You know, they're more worried about which person's having dinner with, some celebrity and yada, 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 right? Like, you know what I'm saying. So the biggest thing is to have a focus solely on God. Know that there's stuff in the world, but focus on God. All right, Ecclesiastes 2. We're going to dive deeper. I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasures to find out what is good. But that also proved to be meaningless. Laughter, I said, is madness. And what does pleasure accomplish? I tried cheering myself with wine and embracing folly. My mind still guided me with wisdom. I wanted to see what was good for people to do under the heavens during the few days of our lives. I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs to water groves of flourishing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had other slaves who were born in my house. I also owned more herds and flock than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I assumed silver and gold for myself and the treasures of kings and providences. I acquired male and female singers and a harem as well, the delight of a man's heart. I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me, and all this wisdom stayed with me. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took the delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Yet, when I surveyed all of my hands had done, and what I have toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless. A chase after the wind, nothing was gained under the sun. Then I turned my thoughts to consider wisdom, and also madness and folly. What more can a king's successor do than what has already been done? I saw the wisdom is better than folly, just as light is better than darkness. The wise have eyes in their heads, while the fool walks in the darkness. But I came to realize that the same fate overtakes them both. Then I said to myself, the fate of the fool will overtake me also. What then do I gain by being wise? I said this to myself. This too is meaningless. For the wise, like the fool, will not be long remembered. The days have already come when both have been forgotten. Like the fool, the wise too must die. So, I hated life, because the work that had been done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it is meaningless, a chase after the wind. I hated all the things that I had toiled under the sun, because I must leave them to the one who comes after me. And who knows whether that person will be wise or a fool. Yet they will have control over all of the fruit of my toil, into which I have poured my effort and skill under the sun. This too is meaningless. So my heart began to despair over all my toilsome labor under the sun. For a person must labor with wisdom, knowledge, in skill, and then they must leave all they own to another who has not toiled for it. This, too, is meaningless and a great misfortune. What do people get for all the toil and anxious striving with which they labor under the sun? All their days their work is grief and pain. Even at night their minds, too, do not rest. This, too, is meaningless. A person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their toil. This, too, I see, is from the hand of God. For without him, who can eat and find enjoyment? To the person who pleases him, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. But to the sinner, he gives the task of gathering and storing up wealth to hand it over to one who pleases God. This, too, is meaningless, a chase after the wind. So all these pleasures, riches, fame, fortune, building vineyards, building up these great empires, he realizes at the end of it, it's going to be meaningless. So, for example, other than knowing Carnegie Hall and knowing what's in the textbooks, how many people know Andrew Carnegie? How many people outside of the textbook would know Rockefeller? Right? I mean, it was taught through history, but that's how we know them. Right? But all the stuff they built, can we point to it all? I can't. Vanderbilt. I know he's got some mansions on the Hudson, right? But can I point to the stuff that he built? Not fully. Right? Like, I honestly... there was a funny... I don't know how funny, but it was kind of funny to me. There was a funny meme going on like TikTok and whatnot. And they were going... People born before 1990 and people born 1990 and later. And they kept asking people, they said, do you know Jenny's phone number? What's Jenny's number? Everybody at like 90 and later, they're like, huh? And I'm like, I know it. I know the number, right? But it's still, when it skips the generation, right? It becomes meaningless. And this is exactly what Solomon is talking about. It's an earworm, and it's all playing in your head right now. I know it is. It is. Like, you're singing it right now. But if I asked Evan, or if I asked Will, what is Jenny's number, they will have no clue.
I can tell you.
You could tell me.
Each one, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9.
867.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh,
867 5309.
oh 5309.
Right? But then in the 90s, there's Stacy's mom. Right? There's these like iconic songs, but then one generation will know it, one won't, right? And I'm just kind of giving like a musical example. Unless you're exposed to it, you won't really know it. And that's the thing of what Solomon's saying is like there's a meaningless. When people build up wealth, they'll become. Yeah, Carolyn got it right. Vanderbilt made Grand Central Station. Let's see, they desperately tried to buy their forgiveness at the end of their lives. What about yeah. People are trying to buy forgiveness at the end of their lives. But these are things, right? But we only know them through textbooks or that we lived it, experienced it, stuff like that, or we were taught it. But if they're not being taught, right, it would essentially fall to the wayside. The rich Yeah, the rich robber barons, right? Like, I know part of it, but like, do I know all of the story? I don't know. The Kennedys, right? I know they were like moonshine bootleggers or something like that, so on and so forth, right? But I only know that because of, all the other stuff. But the idea is there are a lot of people that will build up a lot of wealth. And there are people that are new money, old money, et cetera, et cetera. And they'll even say there's a distinction between the two. But old money understands to have generational wealth, and they teach generational wealth into the kids and stuff like that. But the kids don't always have appreciation for it. They just receive, they just get, they've never had to work and toil for it. And there's no guarantee that somebody's not going to just turn around, blow it all on the real horse track or whatever. And next thing you know, everything that was toiled and worked after is completely gone because one generational line decided to spend it all. Right? New money too, right? Like sometimes people get, like, if you look at the statistic is that I think it's 90-something% of people who win the lottery go bankrupt within like 5 to 10 years. They go through all of it. Generational wealth is quickly spent because it's not appreciated. Exactly. And that's the exact thing of what Solomon's saying here is that you build up this wealth, but then you're passing it on, and it could just be gone in an instant. And all that work and all of that toil and everything that was done could be immediately gone because there was no appreciation for the toil that went in. And so it really becomes meaningless. You can't take it with you. You can't take the money with you. You can't take the power with you. You can't take anything with you. You come into this world and you go out the exact same way. And so all those things, when we strive for the world, is meaningless. Now, it's easy to waste what you don't earn. Yep, exactly. And right at the end, in verse 24, he's saying, a person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their toil. This too, I see, is from the hand of God. For without God, who can eat and find enjoyment? The person who pleases him, God gives wisdom, knowledge, and happiness. So he's saying that happiness, wisdom, and knowledge all come from God. It's not from things. It's not from stuff. It's not from the world. It's not from the 1,000-inch TV and, full surround sound. It's not that. Those that might be temporary fun, but then all of a sudden there's a newer one or an updated one. Look at the phone market. Oh my goodness, this is the greatest phone we've ever done. Yeah. Okay. But it's the salesy technique versus the godly. Like the prodigal son. Exactly. So this is what Solomon's saying. It's not the stuff of the world. It's the stuff that comes from God. Ecclesiastes 3, well known. This is like the well-known verse of like the Old Testament. It's like right up there with Psalm 23. So Ecclesiastes 3. There is time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a tear and a time to mend. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in human heart. Yet, no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning to the end. I know there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may drink and eat and find satisfaction in their toil. This is a gift of God. I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it, and nothing can be taken away from it. God does it so the people will fear him. Whatever is has already been, and what will be has been before, and God will call the past to account. And I saw something else under the sun. In the place of judgment, wickedness was there. In the place of justice, wickedness was there. I said to myself, God will bring into judgment both the righteous and the wicked, for there will be a time for every activity, a time to judge every deed. I also said to myself, as for humans, God tests them so that they may see that they are like the animals. Surely the fate of human beings is like that of the animals. The same fate awaits them both. As one dies, so does the other. All have the same breath. Humans have no advantage over animals. Everything is meaningless. All go into the same place. All come from dust, and to dust they return. Who knows if a human spirit rises upward, and if the spirit of an animal goes down into the earth? So I saw that there is nothing better for a person than to enjoy their work, because that is their lot. For who can bring them to see what will happen after them? So he's saying to live in the moment. This entire thing is that there will be seasons of life. There will be hardships. There will be joyful times. There's going to be every kind of time there is under the sun. Every different emotion, every different season that will hit us will hit everyone. The righteous and the wicked. All of us will endure those times, those seasons. But the thing that separates those that know God from the ones who don't know God is that they will find joy in their work. They find joy because joy and happiness comes from God. It doesn't come from the job itself. It doesn't come from the toil. It doesn't come from the building up. It comes from God. And that is the distinction that he is fully showing. That you could be rich, you can have everything, and still have nothing. Unless you have God. The birds had a hit harmonizing this. Yep. Yep. Turn, turn, turn. See, now that's going to be another generational thing. Right? How many people know that song? I know it. Right? Can I say Evan and Will know it? No. I know they're young, but, not everybody, see, it's one, but yes. All right. Ecclesiastes 4. Again, I looked and saw the oppression that was taking place under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they have no comforter. Power was on the side of the oppressors, and they had no comforter. And I declared that the dead who had already died are happier than the living who are still on earth. But better than both is the one who has never been born, who has not seen the evil that is done under the sun. Now I know that one is highlighted in my Bible, right? I understand what he's saying, right? There is a lot of evil in this world. We talked a little bit about turn on the news. Turn on the news, right? There's a lot of evil in this world. And there's a lot of heinous acts. And there's a lot of barbaric things that people do. Look at wars. Look at all these things. People are barbaric. We say we're civilized to an extent. But people are, yeah. And there's a lot of evil in this world. And there's a lot of things that are horrific in this world. And these are some of the things that Solomon has seen, right? And so he knows that there's this really darkness in the world. So that's what he's kind of getting at. But even those that are oppressed and those that are doing the oppression are in the same boat. Yes, one has more power on one than the other, but really they're still in the same boat. Also, Jesus was a poor man, yet had it all. He was the opposite of earthly riches. He wasn't poor, because a lot of people paint that picture that he was poor, and it wasn't that he was poor, but he had everything he needed. He wasn't rich, but he wasn't poor, but at the same time, he had no place to lay his head, but that was also part of being the Messiah, that he didn't have earthly things because his job was heaven bound and heavenly things. And so he had to go and teach and preach and go from place to place. And so that's what his entire purpose was. So he wasn't, I know some people will paint that picture that he's poor. He wasn't poor, but he also wasn't, displaying tons of wealth either. We know this because the garments, when the Roman soldiers are casting lots over his garment, there's a purple, one of them was purple, and purple is a symbol of kingship and stuff like that. And it didn't have I think it didn't have seams or something, and it was like a very nice tunic sort of thing that they were casting lots to divide up his garments. The world operates in the opposite dichotomy from the teachings of Jesus. Yes, because the world wants to pull us away from Jesus. The world wants us to be separated from God. That's Satan's entire thing. Distract every which way to separate us from God. Wouldn't he be considered poor because he didn't have earthly possessions? Well, it depends upon how we define what rich is. What is rich? What is poor? Right? It's not always about possessions. It's not about the money in the bank account. Why do people want money? To pay for goods and services, right? To purchase things. Okay. But, Elon Musk recently had an interview. And it's really it's an interesting interview because they're talking about the Optimus robots that will be coming in and taking over all these labor jobs and all that for comfort, right? So the question would be, if you had robots to do all these jobs and there are abundant resources for everyone, would you really need money? Right? Like, why do we need money? For comfort, to buy services, to buy goods, to buy stuff, to buy things, or experiences, vacations, yada, 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 car, this, that, all these things. Robot, right? You need money to buy a robot. But then the robot will make you more, I don't know how to, but it was just, it's an interesting concept, and it was an interesting talk of like, what is money really good for? And the thing is in the Bible, it talks about money a lot in the sense of it's just paper. It's just a tree. It's gold, right? It's just a rock. I can go outside, put a shovel in the ground, and I can find a rock pretty fast on this mountain. But it's just a rock. What's a diamond? It's just a rock. What's a ruby? It's just a rock. The monetary system that everything is based upon is what God has given us all around us. When that wisdom sinks into our hearts, we look at it in a completely different way. Paper. Like, we toil, we struggle, we stress over paper, over a number. Right? Now, I understand. Don't get me wrong. I understand stress and money. I understand. But the thing is God is bigger than all of that. And when his provision comes, he never does it through money. It's, most of the time it's through the resources that you would need. Nehemiah rebuilding the temple. Boom, all of a sudden resources were coming from every which way to build the temple. All of those things is that God will provide the opportunity for the resources or the thing to be completed if he put it on the heart. So was Jesus poor? No, because he did still have some like nicer clothing, right? I can't say he had Nike sandals, right? But or Jordan Air Comfort Glide, But what was he poor? No, the disciples, everywhere they went, they had the provisions they needed. They were provided for. They had, what they needed. When he would go for the Last Supper, they had a spot for them. They didn't have to scrounge around. They weren't eating in the street. Everywhere they went, there was a provision for them. God provided for them. So he wasn't poor, but if we want to say the earthly status of he didn't have a comma in the bank account or 5 commas in the bank account, but God's always been telling us it's never been about that. So that's where that world and God really have that divide. All right, chapter 4, verse 4. And I saw that the toil in all achieved spring from one person's envy of another. Let me read that again. And I saw that all toil and all achievement spring from one person's envy of another. This too is meaningless, a chase after the wind. Fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. Better one handful with tranquility than 2 handfuls of toil and chasing after the wind. Again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling, he asked, And why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless, a miserable business. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls, and no one can help them up. Also, if 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how is one kept warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord with 3 strands is not quickly broken. So, some keys here is that, and I really like verse 4, is that most of the toil, most of the achievements that people strive for is because they're envy of somebody else's success, or they're envy of what somebody else has, and they want it too. Motivation. They're motivated because they want the new car. They're motivated because they want this. They want the new gadget. They want that. That's where the motivation comes into. And so that motivation is the wrong thing, right? Is it expanding the kingdom? If yes, cool. My phone's buzzing off like crazy behind me. And so he talks about how one person's trying to do all of this work, but then he has nobody to give it to. So if they have no heirs, right, there's nothing to give it to. But if you have heirs and they spoil it, then what's the point of that too? So he's showing all the different conundrums that people fall into of it can go this way, this way, this way, this way, that way, this way, that way. It can go a million different ways. In the end, is it worth it, right? And there's a certain level to it. And again, if it's for God and God's kingdom, absolutely. Then he goes into working together. And so now, when it's teamwork, when it's 2 people achieving the goal, there's a much bigger thing with this. And this is heavily tied into marriage and all of that. Where 2 come together as one, then their labor comes twice twofold. There's a much better return on the labor. If one person falls, the other one's there to pick them up. If one person is hurt or whatever, boom, they help each other up. If they lie down together, they keep each other warm. One person can't do that by themselves. I know we have blankets, but that's not the point of this. If somebody can overpower one person, but when you have a team of 2, that becomes a much harder challenge. And I love the last part. A cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. So here he's talking about 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Then in the very last sentence there, a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. Why does he go from 2 to 3? Because it's God. When God is in the mix, it becomes the 3. And with the 3 strands, it becomes super hard to even break. 2, you can break. 1, you can break. 3, much more difficult. So he's showing God in the very last part of that. Now also, when we look at the 3 and, the numerology people out there, what is 3? The Trinity. God cannot easily be broken and cannot be broken, right? But the Trinity and marriage combines with God to have a Trinity within a Trinity within a Trinity. Ooh, that's like a mirror inception thing going on there. But he puts God right there in the middle. Now, let's finish up this chapter. Better a poor but wise youth than an old but foolish king who no longer knows how to heed a warning. The youth may have come from prison to the kingship, or he may have been born in poverty within his kingdom. I saw that all who lived and walked under the sun followed the youth, the king's successor. There was no end to all the people who were before them, but those who came later were not pleased with the successor. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. So this is kind of like advancement, promotion, all of that stuff. Again, meaningless without God, without purpose, without happiness within the toil to expand his kingdom. So let's end there because I know it's almost 8 o'clock and a lot going on there. Let's see. The cords of 3 strands, the Holy Trinity. Yep. The Trinity. Yep. So those 3 are the Trinity. And it goes to show when you put God in the mix of it all, especially marriage, right? But the mix of it all can't be easily broken. And when we keep our eyes and everything focused on God and away from the world, we'll find the true happiness and true peace and everything. So let's pray. Gracious God, we're so thankful for you. We're so thankful for your word. Lord, we can see the 2 different extremes of Job, who has nothing and still praise you. And as we're going through Solomon, who had everything and knows it was for naught without you. Both of the stories are on the opposite ends of the spectrum, but they both show the same thing of how much we need you. That our lives need you in every aspect, so that what we are doing can be pleasing to you, Lord, for what we go and share, that we share for you. Guide us in that way, Lord. Let us see our service to you in everything that we do. For, Lord, it is for your kingdom, and your kingdom alone, that we do this. We lift you up and we praise you. We're thankful for your Son, Jesus, for dying on the cross and saving us, that we could be redeemed to you. That all of our bad things will be washed away when we go before you on that judgment seat. That we can boldly walk up there, not because of what we've done, but because of Jesus. For when you look at us, you see him. We can never earn that, but we can freely accept it and receive it. And we do so tonight. And we pray this in Jesus' mighty and holy name. Amen. All right. God bless you. Thank you so much for tuning in. We love you. We appreciate you. Like, share the videos, and we will see you again. I think it's going to be another Saturday night. I'll have to send it out because we're back in hockey. I know. But we love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. God bless.